Here we go. So, welcome to the grind. I'm your host, Mike, with the last name I can't pronounce, and we're going to talk about my Medicarian notes. And if you're not familiar with Medicarians or didn't partake last week, it's a huge event, obviously, from various people, around 5,000 attendees between all the people who had booths and presenters and just all the attendees. Again, about 5,000. So pretty big turnout. They had a massive room for Medicare and two side rooms basically for ancillary, and I'm sorry, for annuities, and then another one for life or ACA. So life annuities, Medicare, and then ACA. I went to several sessions, and a lot of the things we covered here, like the big thing they talked about on day one, was the new marketing rules, which we talked about last week, 2 weeks ago. But a lot of these conferences, if you've ever been to them, really the real joining, the real meat, if you would, of these conferences happen outside the conference room when you're having these one-on-one conversations. So some of the conversations I've had, I want to show you. And I talked to lots of agents while I was there. That was my goal, to talk to agents, see what's going on, what's happening. And really, there were a handful of conversations that seem to repeat themselves. And if you want to have these conversations with other agents, make sure you join our Top Golf events coming up. We have five more coming up. Pennsylvania on May 12th, 19th in Fishers, Indiana. I won't be at that one. I apologize. My daughter's graduating high school the same day in Kansas City, so I will not be there. I will be in Schaumburg, and it will be in Ohio. And then we also have Michigan as well. So there are the dates. You can go to gordonmarketing.com, click on events, and Top Golf is in there. It's free to attend. Going to be a great event. And again, if you want to have these meaningful conversations with other agents, what they're doing, what's happening, what's working, what's not, I implore you to do these things. So, other agents, three conversations really repeat themselves at Medicarians. And the first set of conversations were the agents just starting out. And now I say starting out, no, I don't mean I just got my license yesterday. What do I do? I'm talking about they've got a couple years in the business. They're doing it now full time. And now they're like, how do I run my business? Right? Because no one teaches you how to do that. Right? You get your insurance license, you find an FMO, hopefully Gordon Marketing, and you start running a business. And people train you how to write business, what to say, what to do. But what about taxes? What about a CRM? What about management of just life in general? What about, you know, all these other things that come with running a business, especially when you're one person shop and everything falls in your lap. So that was a very common, conversation. Again, I'm going to take a quick drink. I'm still adjusting from being in the dry air for a week, but it really was, what do I do? And obviously, systems and processes was a big thing because I've always said there's four parts to owning your own insurance agency, whether it's a one person show or several people, they really have to master and get down. The first is product knowledge, not only what the product is, but how it works for your client. So that's first. Second is marketing, right? No one's going to call you. There's no shortage of insurance agents. So you have to go out there and let people know what you do. Third is selling, and that this isn't jamming product down people's throats. It's just being able to provide appropriate solutions to your clients and prospects, and all appropriate solutions, not the ones that are just easy to you. And the fourth thing is retention. So once you've gone through all the first three steps, how do you make sure you have to don't go through all that again with that same person? You want to retain them as your client, and that obviously opens the door for referrals. So product knowledge, marketing, selling, retention. Most most agents never hear about that, or they hear about that, but they don't hear about all the other things. So what CRM to use? And Agency Block was out there. They had a booth. They're a great outfit. I would say a lot of agents I know that use Agency Block as a CRM love it. They rant and rave about it. Does it do everything you need to do? Probably not. Maybe there might be some things it doesn't, but it does. What it does do, it does really well. Right? There's no perfect solution out there. You kind of have to make do with what you have. How do you manage your time and all those things? So hopefully you are doing that. If you have questions, if you're in this category and you have questions, please let me know. But the biggest thing was CRM and retention. And a lot of that came down to having a newsletter doing annual reviews, and really setting up. One thing you want to do is have that process where you push a button and it's done. So, like in a CRM, you put them in your CRM and then it automatically sends them emails, maybe 60 days out, maybe 180 days out, just to follow up with them and such. So that was a big conversation, is setting up those processes because a lot of agents write a piece of business and that's it. So again, if you're in this boat, let me know. Put in the Q&A, put in the webinar chat. I'm happy to have that dialogue, or we all are, right? We're all in this together. The next one I found very interesting, and this is for agents that are past that 4-year mark, maybe that 5, 6, 7-year mark, and they have a big book of business to the point where it's overwhelming for one person or for the staff they have. And it's like, what do I do next? And I had a very long conversation with an agent in Colorado. And she was like, look, I've got, I don't know how to handle everything. What do I do? Do I do LOAs, license only agents? They're basically agents that work underneath you and you pay them directly. So if they leave you, they can't take the business with you. And the reason you want to do that is you spent time, effort, energy, provided leads, maybe whatever you've done. You don't want them writing it and then running off and then disbanding that business. And then if you're associated with that, then you're associated with abandoning that client. And you don't want that, obviously, right? So LOA is a model, or just having an admin staff, right? Maybe you don't need anyone to help you sell. You need the back end work. And do you do that with a person, part-time, full-time? Do you get a virtual assistant that is more of a contract worker that you lay out what they need to do? And that was a big one. And here's the big thing about LOA agents or building a downline of agents. Even if you don't do LOA, if you just do regular agent, whatever it is, and this was the realization that this agent had, is this. Let's say you're out there selling 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week or 30 hours a week, whatever it is, and the rest of the time you're doing all your maintenance stuff, answering questions, doing your marketing, yada, yada, yada. Well, the big thing here is if you bring on a new agent, how much time, effort, and energy can you afford to give them? Because the more you hold their hand, which again, for the first few weeks, you're going to have to, that takes you out of the field. So if you're still dependent on your day-to-day sales, you may not be ready to bring on an LOA agent. Because that agent's going to get contracted, get licensed, get contracted, and be like, okay, now what do I do? Right? They'll be sitting at home waiting for orders like, okay, I'm here. Now what? I need you to train me 8 hours a day for the next 2 weeks. Let me know. I've got 1,000 questions. Well, if they're doing that, or if you have a couple people doing that, guess what? You're not in the field selling, right? You're now, all your effort and energy is focused on getting these agents up and running. And let's face it, not every agent that's recruited is going to sell or stick around. They may come on, learn for a week and go, nope, I'm going back to the real world. I don't want to do this. I don't, this isn't my jam. Forget it. And then you got to replace that person. And now you got the whole process starts all over again. So how much time, effort, and energy can you afford to give to a person that takes you out of the field? Now, with admin staff, it's not as bad because you're just going to say, hey, take the call, leave a message. If you want to schedule an appointment, you could do that. If they have questions about the policy, you could send them the website or send them some materials. You got to be careful what non-licensed admin staff can do, but they could do some basic things to take some, administrative work off your lap, right? Maybe they can send follow-up emails. Hey, just check in, make sure you got an insurance card, yada, yada, yada. They can do stuff like that. They just can't do the nitty-gritty into the policy work. So it's a little less time, but again, that person's just taking off your plate. You're not necessarily making commissions off them. They're not really an expense. They're an investment of getting your time back, but you're not going to make any overrides off your admin staff unless they progress to a license-only agent. So what's best for you? That's up to you. And I've seen agents or agencies just take on, virtual assistants during the AEP hours or AEP time of year to help offset all the chaos. And really, how does it work for you? What is your goal? Whatever. I've seen very successful solo agents. I've seen very successful agencies. There's whatever path that looks most advantageous to you, you should take. But no, you need to start planning now, especially in April. It's almost May. because when AEP comes, you won't have time to train anyone. So if you've been thinking about it and you struggled hard last AEP, now's the time to get someone up and running. So when AEP does occur, they're not scrambling behind you. And I've seen it happen firsthand where in September, an agency brings on somebody and that person's lost for 2, 3 months. And that new person you thought would be great to take work off your plate. Well, now they added a bunch of work because you have to explain how to do it for them when you could just done it yourself and yada yada. It's just chaos. So start planning now. But that was a key conversation I've had with quite a few people, right? Especially this last AEP with some carriers who may have left or changed plans, and you have to roll 2, 3, 400 people. Well, how do you maintain that? Do you do it licensed agents? Do you do town hall meetings? What do you do? And last but not least is selling your book of business. How do you retire, right? Do you just work until you're 95 years old and that's it? Are you licensed as an agency and not a person? That's the first thing you should do. If you are not licensed as an agency, that's number one. Because if you ever want to sell your book of business or merge your book of business or whatever it is, guess what? Buying an agency is a lot easier than trying to buy an individual's book of business. If you want to add license only agents to your agency, it's a lot easier to do it when you have the agency and rather an individual producer number. Okay. If you are married or have a significant other and you want to protect that book of business from just stopping if something were to happen to you, you need to be licensed as an agency because as an agency, you have a top line. So you're writing to the agency as a principal, right? But then let's say you become disabled and you can no longer work. Well, if you're an individual producer, all those residuals, if you can't do renewals, stop. And so your significant other has no income. But if you're licensed as an agency, that person can sell the agency or become licensed themselves and then continue the referral stream. So something to consider. Okay. You want to have an agency, even if you're a solo producer, because again, if something does happen, you don't want that renewal stream to just stop cold turkey. You want to make sure that you have something to leave behind, or if you want to merge, or if you want to expand, or anything you want to do, you want that either Schedule C or LLC, depending on how your tax accountant puts it to you or builds it for you, depending on your goals, whatever it is. Talk to them. I'm not a tax professional or your lawyer, but talk to them and say, hey, here's my goal. Here's what I want to do. What's my best setup? And make sure you do that. Now, once you have that, then what? Well, then you could build that book of business. And if you ever want to sell it, you could sell it. The going rate I've seen is about 2.5%, or 2.5 times, excuse me, not 2.5%. That'd be horrible. 2.5 times, give or take, depending on the state you live in, the product mix, all those things. So if you're making $100,000 a year, your book of business is worth about 250. Now, again, could be higher, could be lower, lots of variables in there, but that's a good rule of thumb is about 2.5 times. That's what you have right now. And there are lots of agencies or lots of businesses and lots of third-party vendors that will buy your book of business from you. So there you go. There's also talking to an agent about sunsetting, right? Maybe putting an agent in charge as, the new principal, but doing it over the span of 3 to 4 years where they eventually just take over. And there are ways to do it that way too. So you can kind of phase out the last few years of your career, depending on where you are in your career, of course. Or maybe you want to change careers, right? Maybe you're just burnt out. You got 300 clients and you're like, man, this stinks. I don't want to do insurance anymore. I'd rather, become a bikini model or whatever you want to do. I don't know. What's your dream? Maybe you want to go drive a taxi in the Bahamas. That's my retirement goal, right? How fun would that be? Just drive a taxi around for tourists, just living the dream. That seemed like it would be fun. Probably isn't as fun as I think it is, but that's my goal. Not really. But if you want to do that, you can sell your book of business and then fund that next adventure. So that's another thing you could do. So if you get burnt out, there's an option. Or again, you could build a downline that help runs it for you. Another thing just to consider is if you have a larger book of business and you've got agency, you want to bring on new agents, but you're like, man, I don't know. I don't want to buy them leads. I don't want to do any of that. And your book of business has been cross sold for life or annuity or ancillary products. You can bring in an agent that you obviously have to trust to cross sell your book of business. So that way, if you're like, I know they all need hospital indemnity plans, all my MA clients, well, bring on an agent, say, here's my agents or my clients, excuse me, call them and say, you're calling on my behalf to sell them this, and we could split 50-50 or whatever you come to. And that's especially easy with life insurance because of a much larger commission. With annuities, it's easier because, again, much bigger commission. So if you're like, if you could sell a $300,000 annuity and make $20,000, you pay them 50%. That person just made 10 grand. You made 10 grand. They're working your book of business. There you go. That's a nice way to jumpstart a new agent into this field, right? If they're making $50,000 a year, they're making $4,000 a month, and you just gave them 10, you just funded the next few months to get them on their feet. So that's a nice way to jumpstart someone's career and really help take care of you. So there's some things to consider there. All right. Now, change of plans. Before I forget, tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday, we're going to do a cross-selling clinic. However, I now have to jump on a plane at 7 a.m. in St. Louis. So I will be in the air when this is occurring. So we're going to take it down. We're going to do the 30th and the 1st. I'm going to take tactic and techniques and ancillary and do it in one day. So it's going to be a little longer webinar. I do apologize for that, but I won't be able to do it tomorrow because I was asked last week to show up tomorrow or be somewhere by Thursday, and I have to fly. So and just a side note, I'll be in Mexico. So Gordon Marketing, each year we do our reward trip. If you are a high producer and you're like, man, I'd love to go to Cancun with my FMO because my FMO doesn't do that. Something Gordon Marketing has done for the past 18 years. So when is this? I'll give you the exact time here shortly. But again, I'm going to cancel the 29th. We'll do the 30th and the 1st, so it'll still be going on. And if you've registered, you're going to get an email from me this afternoon explaining all this, but we're going to do 2 days. So I'm going to try and break it up to where maybe it's an hour each day. So it'll be about 30, 40 minutes for 3 days. I'm going to break it up to be only 2 days because, again, I'll be in Mexico, probably sunburnt because I am pale. But I'll do that over the next 2 days. So it'll be a 2-day event, Thursday and Friday. So here's what to consider. I know you're like, Mike, that's all you got for Medicarians? No, there's lots of other stuff about, vendors and such. One thing I didn't hear about, and this is something that they discussed, a lot of my colleagues, was the lead vendors weren't really there. A couple years ago, you couldn't walk 10 feet with someone asking you who does your leads, how do you get your leads, who does your data aggregation. I still don't know what that means, but I was asked that numerous times. It was annoying. It was just, leave me alone. We don't do leads. We don't want to do leads. Even if you did leads, you didn't want to be bothered. So push them away. This year wasn't so bad. I think the lead market has got burnt by the call centers. And if you're not going to sidetrack real quick, if you don't know how a lot of leads were produced, here's a scary truth. So big call center makes leads, right? And a lot of them were doing social media / online leads. They weren't really calling anymore. They still call, obviously, because you hear about your clients getting phone calls, but a lot of people aren't answering unknown numbers anymore. So they're doing a lot of online leads, some calls, some mailers, but they generate the lead. They'd bring it to the call center, get on the phone with somebody. They wouldn't sell them. The call center would then take that lead and say, we're going to sell it to the next call center. So the next call center buys it, right? Okay, now we got a lead that we bought from that call center. We're going to call it. Well, that call center is still calling it. It just goes back in the queue. New call center has it. They're calling. They call this person. This person's like, I don't want it. So this second call center sells it to the third call center. So the first call center has it in the queue. The second call center has it in the queue. The third call center has it in the queue. It's been sold twice, and it's still being called on in all three places. So you're like, how do people get five, six, seven phone calls a day? Well, that could happen four, five, six, seven times. So you got seven call centers, all with the same name, whose name was passed or sold from call center to call center, and now their phone's ringing out the hook. So you're like, how's it happen? There you go. So the industry caught on to this and like, we're done buying leads. We don't want to buy any leads that were already sold seven times. They call it legs. So these leads have legs. And if you have seven legs, that means you have seven people calling, right? That's ridiculous. You don't want to be the eighth person calling on that lead. So the lead market pretty much washed away. And what I've seen a huge uptick in is seminars. In fact, seminars have been a huge uptick for a lot of agents. Talked to one agent. She did Medicare 101s. She used a company. It's actually part of our Lead Star program, but they're called Leading Response. And she told me she would order it, and the facility she did them in could hold 60 people. She said I got an average of 80 people that would show up, and so I had to actually have. I actually people were upset that they couldn't attend. Now, the kicker is she fed them. So she cut a deal with a local barbecue place and she paid like I think $15 for every person to come in to eat. So obviously they weren't MA or Part D because you can't beat them, but she's doing just welcome to Medicare 101s, overviews, just introduce herself. And she said she would sell about 80% of the people that showed up. She would sell. Now keep in mind, not all of them, when I say sell, it wasn't necessarily all MAPDs or subs. Sometimes they were buying hospital indemnity plans, sometimes cancer insurance. So you could vary it up, right? So many agents have their blinders on to think I have to sell an MA or med sup or it doesn't work. No, if you sell a cancer plan, that's pretty good. Hospital indemnity plan, there you go. Life insurance policy, there you go. And she realized if I did annuities, oh, I would make back my money tenfold, right? Because she'd spend on average $2,400 for the marketing of it, and that's not 3,000, so it's a pretty good price, and you can get the same pricing. But then she would feed them all. So you figure, one second, let me get my calculator out. If you had 60 people and $15 a head, that's $900. Plus, I think she paid $2,600 because she did some other extra marketing. So it's $3,500 to market her seminar between feeding and marketing. Now, if you're like, well, that's too much money. But if you divide that by 300, she needs to sell 11 of those people. Okay. That's just to get a renewal or a hospital indemnity plan or something like that. So if she gets basically 12 sales, she breaks even. Now, year two, obviously, she makes a little more because MA and she's gaining clients. But point is, she was selling a lot more than that. She was selling about 80% of people. Now, if she sells one annuity and we did the numbers, if she sold a $200,000 annuity times 7% commission, that's $14,000. So she spent 3,500 to make 14,000. It's a pretty good return. So that 14,000 can fund her next several ones, and then everything she makes there is gravy. So just different ways of viewing it. And that's why a lot of agents are running to annuities because it's a much stickier sale. Those people are going to stick with you because they've invested with you, and the also rewards a lot greater. So just some things to all think about. If you're like, man, I don't want to do seminars because it's too expensive, well, take your blinders off and do a full portfolio sale or a full portfolio presentation there, or at least let them know everything you offer. So back to the slide. I went off on a tangent there. I apologize. What's the next step in your career, right? Are you newer, trying to figure out how to arrange your business, how to effectively put systems and processes in place? And the most successful agents I've seen out there have those processes in place. It's not scrambling. I got a new client. What do I do? It's okay. I plug them in. Automation happens. I don't have to worry about it. I just have to worry about seeing them in October. Done. Those are the most successful agents. Are you at capacity? Right? Or are you second phase? At capacity, need to expand. Do you start an agency or do you hire admin staff? Now, of course, I didn't talk about this, but you could do both, right? You could hire an admin and an LOA agent, bring them in and, you know, work them both. So the admin staff can help you with the LOA agents, but again, they both have to be up to speed, or at least the admin staff has to be up to speed, help with the LOA agent. So, however you want to go about your career, there you go. I've seen some agents go LOA first and say, forget it. I've seen some go admin first and add LOA agents later on because now they have additional staff to support that LOA agent. That's a way to do it. So, again, depends on what you want to do, how many downline agents you want, and what you're going to give them, right? Why should I go through you to assign all my commissions to you when I can do it on my own? If all you're doing is providing contracts, I can get that anywhere. Why work with you? What's the advantage of having you as my upline? And that's something you have to answer. Or are you at the tail end of your career and you're like, look, I've got five, six, 700 clients sitting here. I don't want to work anymore. I just want to, I'm just done. I want to travel. I want to spend time with kids, grandkids. I want to see the world. Whatever you want to do, what does that look like? So that's something to consider. What do you sell your book of business? Do you merge with somebody else? Do you do a sunset deal where someone comes in and runs a book of business until a certain time where they fully take over? All depends on what your goals are, how big your book is, how quickly you need the money, if you just want cash out, lots of factors there. But if you need help with any of those, call us. We have resources for people that buy books of business. We have resources if you want to expand your book, if expand your agency, and if you're brand new, we have resources for you there for you as well. So that's where an FMO comes in, like Gordon Marketing, where we could fully give you the support on the back end to do that, right? And that's been the biggest success for annuities. I know I harp on annuities, but again, that market is growing, and if you're not part of it, you're gonna be left behind. So annuities, big part of it. We're your back office when it comes to annuities. You don't have to learn it right away. We'll do your first handful of cases for you. We'll teach you as we go until you become comfortable enough pitching it yourself. So that's something to consider right there. So are you playing for it? And again, if you're looking to bring someone on, I would say February to July is the time to do it because September is too late. September is when you're really ramping up for AEP and you don't have time to train somebody. So if you're thinking about making a move, start the implementation now before it's too late or before you're completely in the weeds when AEP hits and you're trying to do a million things at once. Okay. So there's our number. If you need anything,